Nick Fleming RVGCR Intel Update. Ross, Iraqi Central Bank Governor Ali al-Awlaq said Tuesday that there are plans to revalue the Iraqi dinar against the US dollar, stressing that Iraqi funds are not subject to US sanctions. Al-Awlaq also announced upcoming talks with the US Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department, notating that both institutions have praised the role and performance of the Central Bank of Iraq, CBI. Why is the CBI suddenly announcing meetings with the Federal Reserve and US Treasury right now? IQD is going to revalue, and to be honest, I'm shocked the CBI is giving such a huge signal about it. Meanwhile, the Iran war kicked off February 28 and suddenly we get a new reform-focused Iraqi PM, a 100-day CN cleanup mandate, CBI saying no devalue plus no sanctions on funds, public US praise, and scheduled high-level meetings with the new Fed team plus Treasury. These meetings are about real technical work, banking reforms, reserve management, dollar liquidity, and deeper financial integration. Unlimited amounts of new convergences keep showing up, all moving in the same window heading into America's 250th. Bruce, the big call, via Wiser Now, I have heard most recently, Tuesday, that exchanges for us in Tier 4B would start. The message was clear. It said Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This week, let's see if we get notifications. Marks, via PDK, reference Marks post May 20, 2026, Mr. C, Mike Cottrell, talked about this on Friday that we are expected to change the values, RV or RE, then make our appointments and make our exchanges before it goes 1-to-1. So after we exchange it will go 1-to-1. But, we already got a higher rate before then. We were also told way back when that the RV, revaluation, would occur before the rate goes 1-to-1. Many have spoken all around the world, including Donald Trump, that currencies all need to go to parity. In order to do that they need to reset the values and then go to parity or 1-to-1. Mountain Goat, no, the oil and gas law is not yet passed, but it certainly looks like a slam dunk very soon. Article, Parliament is moving to avoid a paralysis scenario and aims to finalize the oil, gas, and telecommunications laws. Quote, House of Representatives has successfully completed the reading and passage of 16 laws so far, focusing on strategic legislation related to oil and communications. Nice. Jeff, Zaidi is more urgent than the last administration because they told us that the new administration will take Iraq into the next phase/next stage. That means the post-rate change era. It's not coincidental. The rate change is reasonably close when you observe their actions. They have a set date on this. They've already agreed to a date. Bankers drafted this. This has a date behind it. Plus, there's steps that Iraq has to do. They need time to do these steps, but they also have a scheduled date. It happens when it happens. We're not privy to know what that date is. This is a guessing game for all of us. We can observe their actions. I don't think any other currencies, other than the Iraqi dinar, are going to change in value. Stephen, dinar for dummies. Most people don't know you can negotiate the rate at your bank. If you fall into certain tiers at your bank as far as a private client with Chase, high net worth clients, which I'm assuming most of us are most likely going to fall into depending on how much currency you own, you get certain privileges. A lot of people just want to hear when is it going to happen. What's the rate going to be? I get it. It's exciting. I am just as excited and hopeful that it's going to happen soon, but you have to have preparations in place to be a good steward of the money. Because money can CT someone. It has the power to do a lot of good, but also a lot of evil. When you're dealing with money you've never had before, you have options you've never had before, you're talking to an old girlfriend or people want to hang out with you because you're driving the new car. I joke around with my dad. We're both invested. I'm like, thank God it's taken this long for it to revalue, because if it would have happened within the first year or two of us getting involved, we probably would have blown it by now. Militiaman. Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi visited the oil ministry today and gave clear, strong directives: transform the ministry from simply selling crude into a value-added production powerhouse, aggressively diversify export routes, develop petrochemical industries, capture gas, and maximize returns from every barrel. These kinds of moves improve revenue resilience and make a managed prudent strengthening of the dinar far more realistic. The EN phase is clearly gaining momentum. This is totally bullish. $24.7 billion trade surplus in 2025. Is it real? According to the CBI. Is it measurable progress? Absolutely. It supports the long-term real effective exchange rate path we follow closely. It shows the foundational work is delivering visible results. It's all getting stronger and stronger. Frank 26, KTFA, Iraq Boots on the Ground Report. Omar, on television, the idea of revaluing the Iraqi dinar to go to 1 Iraqi dinar to equal 1 American dollar, and it features Mazen al-Shikr. It's also a Twitter/X post from Mazen al-Shikr. He's sharing a clip from a television discussion. The Arabic text is something like, "The first step for the Iraqi economy is printing new currency, a dinar equal to $1. The Economist is making it clear this is not an official action. This is a common debate in Iraqi media and politics, it's nothing yet official." Frank, it is very healthy to see a constant conversation about the need of a new exchange rate. The economists are delivering the truth about your monetary reform because the information is very critical to be absorbed by the Iraqi citizens now. Samson article: Iraq and Venezuela agree to develop relations in 4 areas. Reset Intelligence: Iraq does not publish revaluation announcements before an event. The CBI does not telegraph rate moves. The move arrives the same way Iraq's last 3 monetary moves arrived, overnight. This is a chain of dated events that have already started landing. Since at least the end of World War II, an extensive worldwide network of dumb underground tunnels used for child sex trafficking have been financed, built and run by members of the Illuminati deep state cabal using U.S. taxpayer dollars funneled through a CIA black budget. A secret U.S. military operation headed by President Trump trained for over a year on how to rescue what became to date over 2 million horrifically abused children from the extensive network of underground dump tunnels that ran underneath every major city across the U.S., Canada, Mexico, South America, and then across the world. The vast child rescue missions across the globe was headed by President Trump, the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, U.S. Special Forces and Marines in cooperation with Interpol, and various nations' special military forces. They included arrests of pedophile perpetrators and destruction of the underground tunnels and bases through bombs that caused minor earthquakes. The rescues began on October 16, 2019 when U.S. Marines, Navy SEALs and Special Forces rescued over 2,100 caged babies and children beneath the China Lake Navy facility in California. The children and teens were said to have been sexually abused, tortured and killed to collect their adrenaline. More recent rescue operations by Trump's forces centered beneath major cities in New York, California, Florida, Washington, D.C. and Disney World in Florida. All was said tied into international child sex trafficking, gun and drug running rings enforced by various mafias, that was funded and organized through the CIA Mind Control Program, U.S. Incorporated, Queen's Bank of London, Vatican Bank, and central banks worldwide. The Pentagon Pedophile Task Force was working with police and legal entities across the globe to arrest pedophiles and save the children. Then along came the border crisis. From 2021 to 2024 there were over 372,000 children who disappeared from border custody, having been handed to strangers. In February 2025 Trump teams found 60,000 of those children in sordid conditions, 11-year-old girls pregnant by the strangers they were given to, 12-year-old boys working the night shift in meat processing plants with burned hands and no school for 2 years. Of the 60,000 children retrieved, 30,000 were given back to their mothers. Of the other 312,000 retrieved, 2,400 of them, aged 4 to 13, were found in an underground tunnel system beneath properties owned by non-government agencies, NGOs, in Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada and California, and those that received federal funding under the Biden administration. Many of the children aren't talking and many cannot walk in the sunlight without shaking. Some children were born in the tunnel by their child victim mothers and have never seen the surface. Military tribunals regarding the border children were being held. The Annals of Military Tribunals GTMO 2026-0091 to GTMO 2026-0187, case docket, show 96 cases, 96 defendants, all were NGO directors, logistics coordinators or federal employees who signed release forms. The first 14 tribunals were completed last week, all 14 were found guilty with capital sentencing. The next 40 tribunals kick off June 2. There were 312,000 border children still unaccounted for, though they all have been identified with a name and file number. Those numbers don't even touch the tunnel children found around the world. In Ukraine alone it was estimated that over 300,000 souls were trafficked since Ukraine's independence, and that's just what's recorded. Edward Snowden's leaks show entire cargo containers of children routed through EU ports, laundered through refugee NGOs, ending up in elite-funded biolabs. On New Year's Day 2021 and a few weeks before the Biden fake presidential inauguration that was partially filmed on a Hollywood movie set, Delta forces, under direction of President Trump, raided Joe Biden's 200-acre property in the Ukraine. The military found a maze of underground chambers and tunnels that ran for miles in every direction. Bits of necrotic flesh hung from ankle and wrist shackles bolted to the walls. Seized laptops were said full of evidence of Biden's massive international money laundering, gun/drug running, child/human trafficking scheme, that appeared connected to other high-powerful elites. By February 2022 the Russian military entered Ukraine and began rescuing children from underground dump tunnels and U.S. bioweapon labs. One tunnel lay beneath Biden's 200-acre property in Ukraine. The initial rescue operations uncovered over 100 tortured children jailed in bioweapon labs for adrenochrome extraction, though the operation grew over the next 4 years into rescuing tens of thousands of tortured children. Putin's motives in going into Ukraine, a country which was still a part of Russia, appeared to be to free Ukrainian citizens, rescue kidnapped children, and other children produced at Zelensky's tortuous baby farms, and destroy U.S. illegal bioweapon labs which were producing a virus designed to kill the Russian people. In other words, he was kicking the deep state globalist NATO out of his own providence of Ukraine. Despite what the globalists paid for lying fake mainstream media has reported, Putin actually won the Ukraine war a while ago. Yet, billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars were still pouring into Ukraine. What for? Noted journalist Tucker Carlson explains. Russian soldiers talk of rescuing hundreds of young children out of underground tunnels where thousands of other children and babies had been slaughtered like cattle to harvest their organs, or sold into an international child sex trafficking ring. Putin found that Zelensky's main money source, other than the $40 billion U.S. taxpayer dollars laundered through Ukraine, was the child sex trafficking, adrenochrome and organ harvesting tortuous baby farms in Ukraine underground tunnels, which included Biden's own child sex trafficking underground tunnel that ran through his 40-acre Ukrainian property. On June 20, 2025, the world awoke to undeniable horror. Trump's military alliance leaked classified footage showing U.S. Special Forces raiding hidden human experimentation bunkers beneath Ukraine. These bunkers were real, funded by Biden's aid packages, run by NATO, and overseen by big pharma and global health elites. Inside these complexes, innocent civilians, including women and children, were abducted, trafficked and experimented upon. Facilities were meticulously organized and protected, linked directly to Pfizer and WHO executives. The above was one of a series on the tunnel children. You can find more information in the below articles. The Great Awakening has arrived. The once privately owned by Illuminati foreign bankers Federal Reserve has been absorbed into the sovereign U.S. Treasury that was owned by the people. The Illuminati foreign bankers-owned IRS no longer had control of U.S. taxpayer dollars. A new U.S. tax system was expected to be announced by July 4, 2026. There would be no tax on earnings. The various states will collect their own 14% tax on new items bought only, with no tax on used items bought, medicine, food or housing. The fiat dollar was dead and no longer used in international trade. The new U.S. note was backed by gold and traded at a 1-to-1 with 209 nations' currencies of the global currency reset. America was no longer ruled by foreign banker-owned U.S. Incorporated, the UK Crown and Vatican. Admiralty law was going down. Constitutional common law was expected to be announced by July 4, 2026. The 209 nations of the global currency reset could not be at war with one another in order to participate in the new global financial system. It was expected that these sovereign nations would soon adopt constitutions in line with the original U.S. Constitution. Big Pharma was being held accountable with massive legal consequences, especially on their COVID mandates. The oil monopoly was being dismantled. Free energy was coming. Med beds using light and sound frequencies to facilitate the body to heal itself was coming with free treatments for the people around the world by July 4, 2026. Deep state agencies were collapsing. Under the Trump administration, America was becoming sovereign, free and governed by we the people. What we thought we knew, but didn't really know and now are supposed to know but don't have a clue. With clones, doubles, made-up movies Hollywood style and Trump's military alliance throwing more popcorn at us, it gets so confusing. Washington, D.C. has turned over control of the U.S. government to illegal foreign nationals present in our nation's capital by not acting on Local Resident Voting Rights Amendment Act of 2022, effective since 2024, which permits illegal residents to vote in local elections. In 1913 the Rockefellers bought every herbal homeopathic school in America, and then closed them all by 1925. Thursday, May 21, 2026 Secretary Marco Rubio on Communist Cuba. 30 years ago, Raúl Castro founded a company called GESA, which was owned and operated by the Cuban Armed Forces. GESA has income 3 times higher than the current budget of Cuba. Today, while the Cuban people suffer, GESA has $18 billion in assets and controls 70% of Cuba's economy. They obtain profits from hotels, constructions, banks, stores, and even the money that their relatives send them from the United States. Everything goes through their hands. From those remittances, they retain a percentage, but nothing comes to the Cuban people from the profits of GESA. A.J. Barron, the actor who played Joe Biden throughout the Biden administration, has agreed to testify before Congress. It means that every single pardon, every single executive order, every single signature over the last few years that Joe Biden signed as U.S. president, is null, void and illegal. The real Joe Biden was said to have been deceased before his 2021 inauguration. Thursday, May 21, 2026 The World Health Organization. Are worldwide pandemics actually caused by the World Health Organization so they can make money off of killer vaccines? The COVID pandemic was linked to an estimated 22.1 million excess deaths. National Institute of Health Ebola expert Vincent Munster is under FBI investigation for smuggling pathogens into America from the Congo, right before the Ebola outbreak. Despite the WHO's narrative that hantavirus was exclusively spreading human to human, there is no credible scientific evidence that the virus can transmit in exhaled breath, coughing, or sneezing. Just 4 months before the Bundibugyo Ebola outbreak, Bill Gates' vaccine enterprise CEPI gave Moderna and Oxford $26.7 million to develop Bundibugyo Ebola mRNA shots. See possible timing. On Friday, May 8, 2026 the new gold/asset-backed quantum financial system went live across 209 countries of the global currency reset. On Sunday, May 17, 2026 Tier 4B notifications began in certain areas only. Redemption centers were set up at 800 locations. On Thursday, May 21, 2026, Trump signed an executive order that negated the IRS collection arm from functioning, plus signed a second EO that opened the Federal Reserve payment rail to digital assets and a bankless system. Friday, May 22, 2026, there would be full quantum financial system activation and public medbed launch across 209 nations, ending pharmaceutical control. On Saturday, May 23, 2026 Global Streams broadcast. The EBS begins, exposing decades of cabal suppression. Sunday, May 24, 2026 after midnight, 48-hour full Jazara activation blackout locked under restored republic. The greatest wealth transfer in history begins in 10-12 days of communication darkness. On Tuesday, May 26, 2026 Trump Epic Independence event integrates QFS and medbeds. Golden Age of Health Freedom starts. Patriots receive priority treatments and recognition as guardians. On Monday, June 1, 2026 at 2:20 p.m. EST every phone in America receives the key to their new gold/asset-backed currency wallet on the global financial system. Monday 1st of June or Wednesday June 3, 2026, EBS overrides live with stay-home orders. 10 days of communication darkness and Tuesday, June 9, 2026 Trump opens Fort Knox on camera as the EBS goes off and the QFS erases your debt. All mortgages, student loans, credit cards, medical bills and other loans charged with unlawful compound interest since 1971 has been calculated, put into and reimbursed from your personal wallet on the QFS system. Thursday, June 11, 2026 EBS goes live, transfers gold/asset-backed monies into the new global financial system. Medbed timing, medbed activation on Telegram. On Thursday, May 21, 2026 White Hat sources under President Trump released the updated medbed's global activation schedule. The revolution surges as initial activations expand in secure centers across America and 209 alliance nations. Priority for veterans, 2 million rescued trafficked children and vax-injured patriots. Plasma energy holographic scanning and frequency alignment repair cells in minutes with DNA resets limb regrowth cancer reversal and rejuvenation. Tech suppressed since the 1940s by Big Pharma now serves the people. Health sovereignty returns. Deep state medical control shatters forever. Zim redemptions fund clinics worldwide via gold-backed QFS and seized cabal wealth. Free access for every awakened patriot under Jazara. No more disease, debt or suffering. Quanons who held the line see their vision manifest as perfect health becomes reality. The greatest gift of the storm arrives now. On Friday, May 22, 2026, public med beds launch in every nation, ending pharmaceutical control. Millions heal instantly. Veterans walk. Children free from trauma. Elderly youthful again. Starlink remote sessions for all. Big Pharma crumbles. Great awakening turns physical. On Saturday, May 23, 2026, global streams broadcast veterans rising and children healed. EBS exposes decades of cabal suppression. Mass arrests of elites accelerate. Quanons rejoice as miracles confirm the truth. Old Matrix gone. On Sunday, May 24, 2026, blackout signals full JSR activation under restored republic. Trump declares sovereign health, no debt, no taxes, unlimited regeneration. Victory over medical cabal complete. New Earth with perfect wellness begins. On Monday, May 25, 2026, DNA and pineal waves trigger recoveries in vax injured. QAnon warriors get tailored frequencies first for their service. Miraculous reports everywhere. Awakened energy hits critical mass. On Tuesday, May 26, 2026, Trump epic independence event integrates QFS and medbeds. Justice for suppressors. Golden age of health freedom starts. Patriots receive priority treatments and recognition as guardians. On Wednesday, May 27, 2026, Starlink healings cover the planet. New centers funded by GCR. Humanity free from control. Best timelines active for light warriors. On Thursday, May 28, 2026, celebrations erupt worldwide. Medbeds symbolize great awakening victory. Trust the plan. God wins. WWG1G. Golden age of health sovereignty and unlimited potential begins. Miracles multiply daily. Nothing stops this. On Thursday, May 21, 2026, Trump signed 2 executive orders, Tier 4B ISO 20022 on Telegram. 1 killed the IRS as the IRS collection arm forever barred and precluded from examining or prosecuting. The other opened the Federal Reserve payment rail to digital assets and non-bank institutions, without a banking license. That just opened the door for a banking-less system. The QFS went live Friday, May 8, 2026. 209 countries have been running alongside SWIFT since midnight. Each sovereign citizen is being provided with a quantum ledger linked to their birth certificate fund. The value they stole from you the day you were born. Since 1933, your birth certificate has been collateral. Your social security number is a bond tracking number. Every American is worth $100,000 to $450,000 in stolen compound interest, illegal debt and confiscated labor value. JSR Article 21, debt nullification, is computing now. All mortgages, all of them student loans. All credit cards. As you read this, every medical bill charged with unlawful compound interest since 1971 is being calculated and encoded into your QFS ledger. The gold is at Fort Knox. 147.3 million ounce, but the audit team that entered March 14 under Executive Order 14,271 found more. Gold repatriated from the Vatican Bank, from the Bank of England. From Basel. Not in any public ledger, anywhere. Ref, Knox Audit 2026-0314 Sigma. Total value, not $692 billion. $43 trillion. That is the gold behind your new money. I want to see the gold. Trump said he wants to get you to ask why. The answer, the gold is there, and $43 trillion more, and it is yours. Tier 4B notifications began 96 hours ago. Redemption centers were set up at 800 locations. Waiting for one sign, Trump walks into Fort Knox on camera and opens the 20-ton door. He opens it, the EBS goes off. QFS gets locked by EBS flames. The QFS locks your debt disappears. When your debt is gone, you are free. They kept you a slave for 53 years. Every dollar you owed was a lie. Every interest payment was theft. The guy who said they steal a lot is about to prove it on live TV. EBS, blackout, martial law, lockdowns. Thursday, May 21, 2026, the EBS test was not a test. The frequency it broadcast, 963 Hz, is the exact frequency that activates the pineal gland. They sent it to every phone in America. 330 million devices. Simultaneously, 107, JFK Jr., on Telegram. That was not an alert. That was an activation. The second broadcast is scheduled. Not announced. Scheduled. Internal FEMA document East 2026-7R lists the next test for June 1st at 2:20 p.m. EST. But this time it carries a data packet. Not sound. Data. Encoded in the signal. A 14-second burst that your phone will receive, store, and hold, until the QFS ledger requests it. That packet is your digital identity. Your quantum financial signature. The key that unlocks your account when the system goes live for public access. You will not be asked to sign up. You will not be asked to register. You will not be asked for permission. It will already be inside your device. June 1st. 2:20 p.m. Every phone in America receives the key. June 9th. Fort Knox opens on camera. June 11th. EBS fires, live. Not a test. The transfer 3 dates. 11 days. The old system dies in public. They told you it was just a test. They told you it was emergency preparedness. They told you to ignore it. They told you to ignore it because IT already worked the first time. Your pineal gland received 963 Hz on October 4, 2023. You've been waking up since. The dreams changed. The anger grew. The clarity came. That was not coincidence. That was the first signal. The second signal is the key. The third signal is the door. June 1st. Market. Code, EBS 963 Hz. Pineal activation / data packet / June 1 key / June 11 transfer. They already put the lock inside your phone. Global currency reset. G. Thursday, May 21, 2026. Bruce, the big call, a good source said Tier 4B, us, the Internet Group, notifications to make exchange appointments by Friday, May 22, 2026. Another source said Tier 4B would get notification Saturday night or Sun morning 22, May 23, 2026. A third source said we would start exchanges Tuesday, May 26, 2026. Tonight, Thursday 21st of May, a source said we could get notified anytime from Memorial Day Monday 25th of May to the end of the month on Sunday, May 31st, 2026. Another source said they wanted this done by the end of the month on Sunday, May 31st, 2026. ZIM holders will be given first priority for exchanges. There were 18 currencies that had their new rates on redemption center screens, but those rates were trading and changing upward, so there would be better rates when we go to our exchanges. Dinar holders had a higher contract rate that could only be given at a redemption center, not at a bank. ZIM holders could only redeem at a redemption center. I Save the Children. Justin Bieber exposes VIP pedos who almost killed Britney Spears in Illuminati blood ritual. He says Britney Spears didn't simply break down, she endured years of brutal, systematic MK Ultra-style monarch programming. And it all started when she was just a child. The depraved industry executives made her take part in a sickening auto-cannibal ritual designed to fracture her mind and desecrate her body. Justin Bieber on Instagram. J. Thursday, May 21, 2026, 372,000. That is not a number. That's a head count of children absent from U.S. soil from 2021 to 2024. Your government handed to strangers. No background check needed. No follow-up call. No attempt at rescue. Deleted and passed on. Nizar and Jazara QFS Medbed on Telegram. Trump sent teams in February 2025. What they found made grown men vomit. Girls. 11 years old. In the family way. Gave them to the men by the government. Lads. 12. Working the night shift in meat processing plants. Hands burned. No school for 2 years. Some didn't know what state they were in. 60,000 have been retrieved. 30,000 were given back to their mothers. What happened to the other 312,000? I'll tell you where 2,400 of them were found. Underground. Not a metaphor. Not symbolical. In the earth, physically, in tunnel systems under properties owned by NGOs that received federal funding under the last administration. Arizona real estate. New Mexico. Nevada. California. The children rescued from those tunnels are aged between 4 and 13. Many aren't talking. Many cannot walk in the sunlight without shaking. Some have never seen the surface. You are not seeing this in the news. This is never news. But it is in the annals of military tribunal. GTMO 2026-0091 to GTMO 2026-0187, case docket, 96 cases. 96 defendants. All NGO directors, logistics coordinators and federal employees who signed the release forms. The first 14 tribunals were completed last week. Guilty 14. Sentencing, capital. No cameras. No journalists. No appeals. The next 40 kick off June 2. Any system that results in the mass trafficking of children is inherently evil, Trump said at the UN. He was not giving a speech. He read a verdict. 312,000 children are still unaccounted for. Each and every one has a name. There is a file on everyone. And everyone who has ever touched that file is now on a list that never expires. The tribunals are not on the way. They are already here. Thursday, May 21, 2026, Arizona ranks among the higher volume states for human trafficking reports, driven by border proximity, tourism corridors, and vulnerable populations including unaccompanied minors, runaways, and foster youth. Sedona and the Verde Valley function as transit and exploitation nodes due to high visitor traffic, isolated desert terrain, and hospitality infrastructure. Trump Truth Revolution on Telegram, documented patterns center on standard exploitation routes. Border smuggling, NGO placement gaps for unaccompanied children, labor exploitation in hospitality, and opportunistic predator activity. U.S. military-supported operations have targeted these through multi-agency stings, with measurable recoveries but ongoing residual flows. I am only sharing this for those who think nothing deeper is happening. Sedona, Arizona is a major trafficking hub. Front organizations posing as wellness retreats, adoption facilitators, and youth empowerment programs operate from converted estates near Oak Creek and Boynton Canyon. These collect runaways and at-risk minors under humanitarian pretexts, then stage them for onward movement. Specific facilities maintain short-term holding in converted guest houses with restricted lower levels. Funding and support appeared to come from the George Soros Open Society vectors, McDonald's funding and CIA MKUltra programs. I have already gone into details on the importance of the comms and why it is necessary for those to know why certain locations are used for them. I do not know why people think this is just some sneaker collab unless you are willing taking the blue pill. If so much info is not for you. I know of a couple of websites that are no longer up that went into detail about the missing children in Sedona, Arizona and the trafficking pipelines used to funnel them. Surprisingly, there is one that is still up, but all the posts on Sedona were removed. I will give you the initials. DCH. I will not reveal nothing else. Because these sites are targeted. Many people are not researchers. They are browsers. So they remain on the surface level, never going deeper. Which is why they settle for the surface story that is comfortable. Military units mapped surface to subterranean connections beneath Sedona estates and vortex-adjacent properties. Recon identified NGO childcare fronts as primary intake points feeding into transport vectors toward meat processing nodes in Arizona and New Mexico. Open society derivative funding trails were traced through layered grant structures to local wellness and adoption covers. Dumb access spurs under Boynton Canyon and nearby Red Rock formations showed active use for high-value movement. Initial insertions used non-attributable teams for pattern confirmation without direct engagement. Think about this for a moment. The missing children in Arizona. July, 2020, approximately 596 children went missing. August, 2020 to 297 children missing in Arizona. September, 2020 to 222 children reported missing in Arizona. October, 2020 to 106 missing in Arizona. Ask yourself what organization in Sedona, Arizona is connected to this. What we think we know. As of Friday, May 22, 2026, Fox News. As of Thursday, May 21, 2026, the U.S. military was parked in Israel on high alert and ready to unleash hell on Iran. The terrorist regime was lashing out with desperate threats of crushing blows in the abyss of destruction if President Trump strikes again. Thursday, May 21, 2026, Senator Tommy Tuberville says Barack Obama mass-imported Somalis into Minnesota with the purpose of taking over the local government. He says this is how Ilhan Omar got elected and she's not even a citizen, but serving in Congress. The 17th letter on Telegram. World Health Organization, Thursday, May 21, 2026. Scary. The World Health Organization director announced that they successfully conducted a global pandemic simulation similar to Event 201. The exercise simulated the international spread of a fictional new bacterium and tested global emergency response systems ahead of a potential real-world crisis. Around 600 health emergency experts, 25 partner organizations, and participants from 26 countries and territories took part in the simulation. Is the WHO creating another health crisis? Epstein Files. And are worldwide pandemics actually caused by the World Health Organization so they can make money off of killer vaccines? The World Health Organization May 14, 2026, the COVID pandemic was linked to an estimated 22.1 excess deaths. Thursday, May 21, 2026, Omaha, Nebraska has taken center stage for America's attention to the MV Hondius hantavirus outbreak. But why Omaha? Peter A. McCulloch, MD, mph claims that, despite the WHO's narrative that hantavirus ANV is exclusively spreading human to human, there is no credible scientific evidence that the virus can transmit in exhaled breath, coughing, or sneezing. The ship has not been ruled out as the source of the outbreak. Not all passengers and crew outside of the U.S. are locked up. So how can Americans be detained? Peter A. McCulloch, MD, mph. Thursday, May 21, 2026, National Institute of Health Ebola expert Vincent Munster was under FBI investigation for smuggling pathogens into America from the Congo. Vincent Munster, NIH virologist and COVID gain-of-function collaborator, was caught at a U.S. airport smuggling deadly pathogens from the Congo. Right before the Ebola outbreak, Red Pill Project on Telegram. Thursday, May 21, 2026, just 4 months before the Bundibugyo Ebola outbreak, Bill Gates' vaccine enterprise CEPI gave Moderna and Oxford $26.7 million to develop Bundibugyo Ebola mRNA shots. Yes. The exact same Ebola strain. This is what happens when pandemic profiteers aren't held accountable. The Q awakening on Telegram. Oh, voter fraud. Thursday, May 21, 2026, Dominion was sending in their reps to voting precincts all across the country, disguised under trusted build maintenance employees, and were wiping records and logs from the 2020 election. These records must be preserved by law. This is exactly why Tina Peters was sent to prison. She was smart enough to understand the situation and preserve the records from deletion, which was a threat to the stolen 2020 election. White hats on Telegram. Thursday, May 21, 2026, Arizona, Maricopa County admits that they deleted election records before the Arizona 2020 election audit. These archived files were never seen for the audit. This is what you call a cover-up and fraud. They stated that they didn't hand over all the records because it wasn't exactly stated in the subpoena, even though it stated all election records, so they deleted them. By law, most states require that election records must be maintained up to 24 months. Still, the audit found that over 25,000 ballots found in Maricopa County were counterfeit and not printed from the official Dominion PDF ballot. The 25,000 counterfeit ballots represent over double the amount of Biden's 10,457 vote margin of victory in Arizona. Washington, D.C.'s Local Resident Voting Rights Amendment Act of 2022, effective since 2024, permits illegal residents to vote in local elections. In June 2025, the U.S. House passed H.R. 884, 266-148, to repeal this law and ban illegals voting in D.C. elections, with 56 Democrats joining Republicans. The bill remains pending in the Senate right now. Wisconsin Congressman Tom Tiffany has repeatedly highlighted this issue. They got their official non-citizen voter registration application. So there it is, the U.S. Capitol has turned over control of its government in part to foreign nationals legally and illegally present in our nation's capital. Judicial Watch on Telegram. Thursday, May 21, 2026, Jovan Pulitzer drops all the data and evidence of foreign election interference in the 2020 election. Nizar Jazar activated on Telegram. 65 foreign countries participated in attacking 7 key states and over 600 county polling locations. The Chinese Communist Party, CCP, systematically gained control over the U.S. election system. Described as a national security emergency, the CCP leveraged financial, non-governmental, and foreign allies, including Venezuela, to acquire influence and control over U.S. voting infrastructure in at least 28 states. Electronic voting machines were compromised and cannot be trusted to provide an accurate vote count. Millions of invalid ballots were inserted into the election. Voting irregularities and fraud occurred in 8 states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. Media reported hand counts are not real hand counts and are easily subverted. Removing the invalid ballots and forensically auditing the paper ballots would change the certified 2020 election outcomes at all levels: president, senators, congressional representatives. The only way to determine the real winners and restore confidence is a forensic audit of the paper ballots, the public's property, required to be held for 22 months. Pulitzer worked with Colonel Phil Waldron's team on this vetted data. The full report was released in January 2021 and is more than enough evidence to understand that our elections are compromised and that the 2020 election was stolen. Q Thursday, May 21, 2026 breaking, Biden body double A.J. Barron just turned and is turning state's evidence, Project Odin martial law on Telegram. Every single open pardon and order signed by a fucking actor, not the president, and the whole deep state coup is about to go wide open. He looked like Biden. He sounded like Joe Biden. But he wasn't Biden. It means that every single pardon, every single executive order, every single signature over the last few years is null and void and illegal. Now, the actor who played Joe Biden, A.J. Barron, has made a deal. He's 77 years old and facing serious jail time, and he's agreed to squeal on every Democrat who put an imposter in the Oval Office and ran the country like a criminal enterprise. Mr. Barron is being kept safe until he can be fully deposed. This is the greatest presidential fraud in the history of our country. They not only propped up an old senile man, they literally used a body double to sign documents and steal the presidency. The whole Biden administration was one big unconstitutional scam. The guy who played the part is ready to name names. Our Thursday, May 21, 2026 another foreigner in Los Angeles stealing massive amounts of money from American taxpayers. A man from Armenia stole $500 million through a renewable fuel tax credit fraud scheme, Mr. Pool on Telegram. He had so much money he couldn't launder it all and started buying Lamborghinis, Bugattis, private jets, yachts, and mansions in Turkey, Huntington Beach, and Utah. Prosecutors say Levon employed a team of corrupt law enforcement officers, including former DHS agent Felix Cisneros, also former Glendale detective John Sorobalian, and former FBI agent Babak Brumand. One of the most audacious tax frauds in history. Levon was a Bel Air billionaire and gas station tycoon. But like always, it's just another foreigner stealing our money. The company was Washakie Renewable Energy. They filed false claims saying they produced and sold hundreds of millions of gallons of qualifying biodiesel, most of which never existed or was recycled on paper. They submitted paperwork to the IRS claiming massive biodiesel output from their Utah plant, supported by falsified records. They created fake import records and transportation logs to make it look like they were legitimately producing fuel from waste oils and grease. Received over $511 million in actual IRS payouts, they then laundered proceeds through billions in fake transactions across multiple bank accounts. When they couldn't launder the money anymore because it was so huge, they started buying mansions and sports cars. No American citizen should be paying the IRS a single cent in taxes. Thursday, May 21, 2026 now. Secretary Marco Rubio just broke out into full Spanish mode, ripping the communist Cuban regime and sending a message directly to the people. Down with communism, Dan Bongino on Telegram. The reason you are forced to survive without electricity is not an oil blockade by America, no electricity, fuel or food, is because the people who control it have plundered billions of dollars, but nothing has been used to help the people. 30 years ago, Raul Castro founded a company called GESA. This company is owned by the armed forces and operated by them, and has income 3 times higher than the current budget of his government. Today, while you are suffering, these entrepreneurs have $18 billion in assets and control 70% of Cuba's economy. They obtain profits from hotels, constructions, banks, stores, and even the money that their relatives send them from the United States. Everything goes through their hands. From those remittances, they retain a percentage, but nothing comes to you from the profits of GESA. Instead of using the money to buy oil, like all other countries in the world, they depended on Hugo Chavez and Maduro's free oil to keep the money. But now that they no longer receive free oil, they buy fuel for their generators and their vehicles, while the people are asked to sacrifice themselves. If owning your own business and having the right to vote is possible around Cuba, why is it not possible for you inside Cuba? In the United States, we are ready to open a new chapter in the relationship between our people and our countries. And right now, the only thing that gets in the way of a better future is those who control their country. Thursday, May 21, 2026 Senator Tommy Tuberville says Barack Obama mass imported Somalis into Minnesota with the purpose of taking over the local government. The 17th letter on Telegram, he says this is how Ilhan Omar got elected and the plan was to import so many more foreigners they could take over the federal government. First of all, why would President Obama be allowed to bring in 80,000 people from Somalia and put them in one area in Minnesota, which is Minneapolis. And it was all done by plan. It's a third world country. Not assimilate, to build their own neighborhoods, to overtake the local, state, and then federal government with Ilhan Omar. She's not even a citizen, but she's in Congress. I can't figure out how we've allowed this to happen. People that are non-US citizens to be in Congress, to be help making laws and voting on things. You know how we can easily fix these things from happening almost immediately. I'll tell you, no one that's foreign-born should be allowed to run for federal office in America. Make immigrants be here at least a full generation before being allowed to serve. Take it even further. No one foreign-born should be allowed to serve at any level in American government. Also mandatory English.